Left to their own devices on a remote road, two blind sisters follow opposite paths until a wild horse unexplainably changes everything. What happens next will challenge everything you believe about fate, nature, and connection. The luxury pickup truck moved slowly along the dirt road, cutting through the silence of the cold winter night on the outskirts of Millerville. The starry sky seemed to observe, like a silent witness, every movement of Oliver Bennett. His hands gripped the steering wheel with disproportionate force, while his eyes, fixed on the path ahead, reflected an inner storm that contrasted with his apparently controlled posture. In the back seat, two small bundles remained in absolute silence. His newborn twin daughters, both blind from birth. With each mile traveled, the weight on his shoulders seemed to increase, crushing any certainty he might have had about the decision he was about to make. When he reached a clearing bathed in moonlight, which formed a silver circle on the damp earth, Oliver finally stopped. There, surrounded by ancient trees that seemed like guardians of old secrets, he got out of the vehicle with the two children in his arms. The world around him seemed to freeze. The night birds fell silent. The wind ceased, as if all of nature held its breath before what was about to happen. With slow gestures, as if each movement extracted a piece of his own soul, Oliver placed one of the children on the ground, carefully wrapped in a blanket woven with geometric patterns. The other remained in his arms for a few more moments as he fought against the impulse to return to the car with both. Finally, defeated by the plan he had traced, he placed the second child beside the first, tying a small wooden amulet around her neck. "Forgive me," he whispered, the word escaping almost without volume, carried by the weight of a secret that consumed him from within. Without looking back, Oliver returned to the pickup and departed, leaving behind much more than his daughters. He left there irreparable fragments of his humanity. When the last echo of the engine disappeared among the mountains, a new sound emerged from the forest. Firm and rhythmic steps approached the clearing, revealing an imposing black horse with silver eyes that shimmered under the moonlight. The animal seemed to possess its own consciousness, advancing with purpose toward the two abandoned children. It bent over one of them, touching her gently with its muzzle, as if in a gesture of ancestral recognition. Then, with surprising delicacy, it positioned the baby on its back and disappeared into the forest, leaving the other child alone, protected only by the blanket and the starry sky. Hours later, Diana and Peter Morgan, a couple of teachers returning from a cultural meeting in a nearby village, spotted something unusual by the roadside. "Peter, stop the car, there's something there," exclaimed Diana, pointing to a small bundle that seemed out of place in that wild landscape. Approaching cautiously, they found the baby wrapped in the colorful blanket in surprising silence for an abandoned newborn. "My God, Peter, it's a child!" Diana took her in her arms, feeling an immediate connection with that small being. She doesn't react to light. I think she can't see." The couple exchanged glances, sharing a silent communication that only years of living together could provide. The nearest police station was more than an hour away, and the night was growing increasingly cold. "Let's take her with us to Freetown. Tomorrow we'll decide what to do," said Peter, already leading his wife and the newly found child back to the car. That same dawn, miles away in Spring Valley, a region preserved between mountains and untouched waterfalls, the black horse emerged from the forest. It approached a small wooden cabin and remained motionless before the door, as if patiently waiting. Dawn was beginning to tint the horizon when the door opened, revealing Madeline, a middle-aged woman with serene features and eyes that reflected ancient wisdom. Seeing the majestic animal with the small bundle on its back, Madeline showed no surprise, only nodded as one who recognizes the fulfillment of an old prophecy. "Zach," she called inside the cabin without taking her eyes off the horse. "She has arrived." A man with sun-marked skin and calloused hands appeared at the door, observing the scene with a solemn expression. Together, they approached the animal, which lowered itself slightly, allowing Madeline to take the child in her arms. As soon as the transfer was completed, the horse rose, neighed softly, and disappeared again into the woods as if its mission had been fulfilled. "It's as we were told," murmured Zach, gently touching the baby's face. "She doesn't see with her eyes." "But she will see with her soul," completed Madeline, entering the cabin with the child. "Her name will be Iris, daughter of the waters and guardian of what is to come." The sun finally rose completely, illuminating both Spring Valley and the small town of Freetown, where Diana and Peter arrived with the other child, whom they would soon name Lily. The sisters, separated by physical distance, remained connected by invisible bonds that not even time would be able to break. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. 15 years passed like a breath. In Freetown, the historic town of colonial mansions and stone streets, Lily grew up surrounded by books, music, and the unconditional love of Diana and Peter. Despite her blindness, or perhaps because of it, she developed an extraordinary sensitivity to patterns, sounds, and vibrations that went unnoticed by most people. That autumn morning, sitting on the bench in the central square, Lily waited for the end of the history class that her mother taught at the municipal school. Her delicate fingers ran over the pages of a Braille book, but her mind wandered far away, captured by a restlessness that had become more frequent in recent months. "You're far away today," commented Sophie, her best friend since childhood, sitting beside her. "I had that dream again," answered Lily, closing the book. "The clearing, the curved trees, that feeling that someone is calling me." Sophie observed her friend with curiosity. She knew well that expression of Lily's, a mixture of fascination and anguish that always emerged when she mentioned her recurring dreams. "Maybe you should tell your parents about these dreams," suggested Sophie, adjusting her glasses on her freckled nose. "They would worry unnecessarily." Lily instinctively touched the small wooden amulet she never took from her neck. "Besides, they're not just dreams. Sometimes when I touch this amulet, I can swear I hear voices like whispers in a language I never learned, but somehow understand." Hundreds of miles away in Spring Valley, Iris walked barefoot along a narrow trail that wound between ancient trees. Her steps were firm and sure, as if she could see every stone, every root, every curve in the path. The valley, protected by imposing mountains and crystal waterfalls, was a natural sanctuary preserved by generations of guardians. "You're late, girl," the deep and melodious voice of Mother Dorothy, spiritual leader of the Living Earth Sanctuary, reached Iris before she even arrived at the sacred clearing. "Forgive me, Mother Dorothy." "The river asked me to wait," answered Iris, approaching the elder with respect. Mother Dorothy, a black woman with hair as white as snow and eyes that seemed to contain the wisdom of centuries, smiled at the young woman's response. She knew well the unique connection that Iris maintained with the natural elements. "And what did the river tell you this time?" she asked, leading her to the center of the clearing, where 4 other women were already waiting in a circle. "That the waters are restless. Something is changing." Iris sat in the indicated position, feeling the energy of the other guardians around her. "I've been seeing lights, Mother Dorothy. Lights that dance even in the darkness of my eyes." The elder exchanged significant looks with the other women. The signs they had long awaited were beginning to manifest. "It's time for you to know your true story, daughter," declared Mother Dorothy, taking Iris's hands between her own. 15 years ago, on the night of the root moon, you were brought to us by the Black Guardian, the protective spirit of the forest that takes the form of a horse. In Freetown, the same truth began to reveal itself in a different way. In the basement of the Morgan home, while searching for material for a school project, Lily found an old wooden box carved with symbols that somehow seemed familiar to her sensitive fingers. "What is this?" she murmured to herself, opening the box carefully. Inside, her fingers found a diary bound in leather, along with newspaper clippings and a small envelope. Intrigued, she took everything to her room. Hours later, when Diana went up to call her for dinner, she found her absorbed, her fingers furiously running over the pages of the diary. "Lily," called Diana, feeling a tightness in her chest at seeing her daughter's troubled expression. "Why did you never tell me?" Lily's voice trembled. "About how you found me on the road, about me being abandoned." Diana sat on the edge of the bed, her heart racing. She knew this moment would come. but she hadn't expected it to be this way. "We wanted to protect you, my love. We were waiting for the right moment." "There's more, isn't there?" interrupted Lily, holding the diary tightly. "This diary talks about legends, about twins born during an eclipse, about crystals and guardians. And there are these notes about Spring Valley. This has to do with me, doesn't it?" In the valley, Iris absorbed similar revelations. Mother Dorothy told her about the prophecy of the children of the root moon, children born blind during a specific eclipse, destined to restore the balance between the natural and human worlds. "Are not alone in this journey, Iris," said Mother Dorothy, her solemn voice echoing through the clearing. "Somewhere there is another like you, a sister separated at birth, but connected by the same destiny." "A sister?" Iris's voice failed, as a strange sensation ran through her body, as if a part of herself, long dormant, was beginning to awaken. "The signs are manifesting. The winds change without reason. The rivers sing in ancient frequencies. Animals migrate in patterns never seen before," continued the elder. "The concrete circle, those who seek to dominate nature for their own benefit, have also noticed these changes. They are looking for both of you." In Freetown, Peter joined Diana and Lily. Together, they told their daughter everything they knew about the night they found her. They showed her the small newspaper clipping they kept, mentioning the disappearance of the twin daughters of Oliver Bennett, a powerful businessman in the energy sector. "This diary belonged to my grandmother," explained Peter. "She studied ancient American traditions, especially those linked to the protection of nature. When we found you with this amulet," he touched the pendant on Lily's neck, "my grandmother said you might be part of something greater." That night, both Lily and Iris lay down with tumultuous thoughts and restless hearts. Separated by distance, but united by a common destiny, both felt a growing urgency, as if time was running out for something important. On the horizon, dark clouds were forming. In his luxurious office in New York City, Oliver Bennett observed reports on unexplained natural phenomena occurring in different regions of the country. His phone rang. "The patterns have been confirmed," said the voice on the other end of the line. "The energy anomalies are increasing, especially in Spring Valley and, surprisingly, in Freetown." Oliver closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 15 years of regret and secrets. "Find them," he ordered simply, hanging up afterward. On the wall of his office, a large map of the United States displayed luminous points interconnected, forming a pattern that resembled constellations. At the center of this map, two photos, one of Lily and another of Iris, both taken discreetly, without the young women noticing. Underneath, an inscription, "Guardian Crystal Project, Final Phase." I'll continue with the translation as requested. The story is about twin sisters who were separated at birth but share a mystical connection. So far, I've translated the first section, changing the Portuguese names to American ones and adapting the locations while maintaining the narrative. Dawn was breaking in Freetown, with a soft mist embracing the colonial mansions. Lily awoke with a start, her heart racing and her skin covered by a thin layer of sweat. This time the dream had been more intense, more real. She sat on the edge of the bed, touching the wooden amulet that seemed to pulse against her fingers. "Spring Valley," she murmured to herself, as if testing the taste of those words in her mouth. After the revelations of the previous night, something had changed within her. It wasn't just the discovery of her origin, but a growing certainty that there was a greater purpose to her existence. She got up decisively, heading to the bathroom with the familiarity of someone who knows every inch of the house. As warm water ran down her face, she made a decision. In the kitchen, Diana was preparing breakfast when Lily entered, already dressed in hiking pants with a backpack on her back. "I need to go to Spring Valley," she announced without preamble, her voice firm and determined. Diana let out a deep sigh. She knew that tone. It was the same one Peter used when he had made an irrevocable decision. "Lily, I understand your confusion and curiosity, but you can't just leave like this without planning, without—" "It's not confusion, Mom," Lily interrupted, approaching and finding Diana's hands with precision. "It's clarity. For the first time in my life, I feel like I know exactly what I need to do. Something is calling me. Something important. Peter entered the kitchen in time to hear his daughter's last words. He exchanged a worried look with his wife. "If you really need to go, you won't go alone," he declared, his voice mixing firmness and tenderness. "We'll go together, as a family." In Spring Valley, Iris was awakening to her new purpose with equal determination. After Mother Dorothy's revelation, she had spent the night in meditation at the Living Earth Sanctuary, seeking connection with her unknown sister. During the hours of deep concentration, surprising images had formed in her mind. Stone streets, a house with thick walls, and a young woman touching an amulet identical to the one that Madeline carefully kept in a cedar chest. "She's coming," announced Iris, entering the cabin where Zack and Madeline were drinking tea made from herbs gathered at dawn. Madeline nodded silently as if she already knew. Zack, on the other hand, frowned with concern. "The concrete circle is also on the move," he commented, pouring more tea for his daughter. "The birds brought news of strangers in the region, asking questions, installing equipment at the edges of the valley." "We need to prepare her for the meeting," said Madeline, rising with determination. "Come, Iris, it's time to know the rest of the story." The woman led Iris to a small annex of the cabin, a space that had always remained locked. The aroma of dried herbs and damp earth intensified when Madeline opened the door. In the center of the room, a simple altar supported a box carved with the same symbols that decorated Lily's amulet. "When the Black Guardian brought you to us," began Madeline, her voice taking on an almost ritualistic tone, "he also gave us this." Upon opening the box, she revealed a crystal fragment that emitted a bluish glow even in the dimness of the room. Iris, who normally perceived only gradations of light and shadow, was surprised to clearly distinguish the luminosity of the object. "I can see," she whispered, amazed, extending her trembling hand toward the crystal. When her fingers touched the smooth, cold surface of the stone, a wave of energy ran through her body. Immediately, vivid images flooded her mind, a clearing under the moonlight, a man with tormented eyes, two babies side by side, and then a black horse separating them. She saw forests, rivers, mountains, as if flying over the United States at high speed, identifying luminous points that pulsed in sync with her own heart. Far away in New York City, Oliver Bennett was receiving the first reports from the teams sent to Spring Valley and Freetown. In his luxurious office, the businessman studied the documents with a mixture of anxiety and fascination. "So the crystals have begun to react," he murmured to Victor Foster, his personal assistant and field operations leader of the concrete circle. "Yes, sir," confirmed Victor, a middle-aged man with cold, calculating eyes. "The sensors detected energy spikes in both locations. And there's more. Our sources confirm that the girl from Freetown is preparing to travel to the valley. It seems the reunion is imminent." Oliver walked to the window, observing the grey city that stretched below. His business empire, built at the cost of ignored environmental commitments and questionable political influence, was at stake. 15 years, he said, more to himself than to Victor. 15 years waiting, monitoring, preparing, and now, finally. In Freetown, the Morgan family was preparing for the journey. Peter had obtained information about Spring Valley, a region of difficult access, known for its extraordinary biodiversity and the traditional communities that zealously protected it. According to this information, he explained, spreading maps on the living room table, the valley is practically isolated. Few roads lead there, and most paths can only be traveled on foot or on horseback. "How will we find my sister when we get there?" asked Lily, her voice hesitant when mentioning that new family tie that still seemed unreal. "The diary mentions a place called the Living Earth Sanctuary," answered Diana, consulting the notes they had made. "It seems to be an important spiritual center for the guardians of the region." As they talked, Lily felt the amulet on her neck suddenly grow warm. When she touched it, an electrifying sensation ran through her fingers. At that moment, just as was happening with Iris in the valley, crystalline images formed in her mind, Clearings, waterfalls, a small wooden cabin, and most clearly a young woman identical to herself, holding a glowing crystal fragment. "I'm seeing," she exclaimed, frightened and amazed at the same time. "Mom, Dad, I'm seeing." Diana and Peter exchanged confused and hopeful looks. "What are you seeing, dear?" asked Diana, approaching cautiously. "Everything. I see a cabin, a forest, I see her." Lily extended her hand in the air as if she could touch the images. "My sister is holding a crystal. She also sees me." In Spring Valley, Iris was experiencing the same extraordinary phenomenon. Through the crystal fragment, she had established a visual connection with Lily, transcending the physical barriers and the limitation of her blindness. Mother Dorothy was right, she said to Madeline, who observed with astonishment the transformation in her adoptive daughter. "The reunion has already begun, even before we are physically together." Outside the cabin, a familiar sound made Iris interrupt the connection. The powerful neigh of the Black Guardian echoed through the clearing. Zack opened the door, revealing the majestic horse standing before the house, exactly as on the night it had brought Iris. "He has returned," announced Zack, his voice laden with reverence. "It's a sign," declared Madeline. "It's time to go to the birth clearing. The circle is beginning to close." In the sky, dark clouds were forming rapidly, creating unusual circular patterns. Migratory birds were altering their routes, converging on Spring Valley in formations never before recorded. In the rivers, fish swam against the current, creating whirlpools that intrigued local fishermen. The entire natural world seemed to be responding to the call of the guardian crystals, preparing for the moment of the reunion of the sisters who, separated at birth, were about to unite their destinies again. However, in the shadows, other forces were moving, determined to interfere in this reunion and capture the power that was beginning to awaken. The road leading to Spring Valley wound between imposing mountains, like a river of narrow and winding asphalt. The Morgan family's car advanced slowly, facing tight curves and poorly maintained stretches. Peter drove cautiously, while Diana consulted the map open on her lap, trying to identify the references mentioned in the diary. "We should be close, to the point where the road ends," she informed, adjusting her glasses. "From here on, we'll have to continue on foot." In the back seat, Lily remained strangely silent, her fingers constantly caressing the wooden amulet. Since the visual experience of the previous night, something had fundamentally changed in her perception of the world. Although she remained technically blind, she occasionally caught flashes of images, like mental photographs that appeared and disappeared quickly. "Everything okay back there?" asked Peter, observing her through the rearview mirror. "Yes," answered Lily, smiling slightly. "I'm just feeling the place. It's different from anything I've ever experienced. The air here has textures I can almost touch." Indeed, as they approached the valley, the atmosphere seemed charged with a subtle energy. The sky, clear before, now presented cloud formations that danced in circular patterns as if following a silent music. Birds of diverse species flew over the vehicle, some even flying parallel to the windows for a few moments, as if escorting the visitors. "I've never seen animal behavior like this," commented Diana, amazed by a flock of hummingbirds. That accompanied the car. The vehicle finally arrived at a small natural parking area where a few other cars were parked. An old man with sun-wrinkled skin and long grey hair tied in a ponytail approached. "Visitors for the valley?" he asked with a hoarse but gentle voice. "Yes," answered Peter, extending his hand in greeting. "We're looking for the living earth sanctuary." The man studied each of them attentively, his gaze lingering a bit longer on Lily. A subtle smile formed on his lips. "I think you're expected," he finally said. "I'm Anthony, guardian of the valley's entrance. I can guide you through the first stretch of the trail, but afterward the path will reveal itself." Meanwhile, in the heart of the valley, Iris was preparing for the journey to the birth clearing. Mother Dorothy had convened a special ritual at the sanctuary, gathering the 7 oldest guardians to bless the walk she was about to begin. "The Black Guardian waits on the East Trail," informed Jasmine, the youngest of the guardians, entering hurriedly into the sanctuary. "And there's more. Our observers reported unusual movement at the valley's limits. Men with equipment, large vehicles camouflaged among the trees. Mother Dorothy exchanged worried looks with Madeline and Zack. "The concrete circle advances faster than we anticipated," said the elder, her voice carrying the weight of concern. "Iris must leave immediately. We've prepared you for 15 years for this moment, daughter. Trust the signs, trust your enhanced senses." Iris nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility she carried. The crystal fragment, now hanging from her neck inside a small leather pouch, pulsed gently against her skin like a second heart. "And what about my sister?" she asked, thinking of the connection they had established. "She's already in the valley," answered Mother Dorothy, surprising everyone. "I can feel her presence, as well as the energy of the other crystal fragment. You will meet in the clearing as it is written." In the makeshift operations center at the edges of the valley, Victor Foster coordinated the concrete circle team. Monitors displayed thermal maps of the region, highlighting energy anomalies that intensified with each hour. The sensors detected 2 points of high energy concentration in movement, informed a technician, pointing to the digital map. One of them leaving the sanctuary, another climbing the main trail. They seemed to be converging on this central point. Victor enlarged the image, revealing a perfectly circular clearing in the heart of the valley. "The birth clearing," he murmured, a calculating smile forming on his angular face, exactly as Oliver predicted. "The twins are gathering at the site where they were separated." He picked up the satellite phone, dialing quickly. "Mr. Bennett, they're on their way to the clearing." "Yes, both of them. We are strategically positioned." "No, don't worry. They won't notice our presence until it's too late." On the main trail of the valley, Peter, Diana, and Lily followed Anthony along an increasingly narrow and wild path. The surrounding vegetation became denser and more vibrant, with intense colors that even Lily seemed to capture in some mysterious way. "The trees are singing," she commented suddenly, stopping in the middle of the path. The others stopped, looking at her with curiosity. "What do you mean, dear?" asked Diana. "Listen," asked Lily, closing her eyes and slightly raising her face. "It's not the wind in the leaves. It's something different, like a vibration, a very ancient music." Anthony smiled, clearly impressed. "You have the gift of deep listening," he said, approaching respectfully. "Few can hear the song of the ancestral trees. This is a good sign." They continued walking for a few hundred more yards until they reached a fork in the trail. Anthony stopped, pointing to the path on the right that climbed gently between moss-covered rocks. "From here on I must leave you," he announced. "Follow this path. It will lead you to where you need to go." "You won't accompany us?" asked Peter, concerned with the idea of continuing alone through unknown territory. "Some journeys must be completed by those to whom they belong," Anthony answered enigmatically. "Besides," he added, looking directly at Lily, "you won't be alone for long." He said goodbye with a solemn gesture and returned along the path they had traveled, soon disappearing among the dense vegetation. The Morgan family exchanged uncertain looks before deciding to continue along the indicated trail. Lily, surprisingly, took the lead, moving with unusual confidence for someone who couldn't see the irregular terrain. "Lily, be careful," warned Diana, concerned. "It's all right, Mum," answered the young woman without slowing her pace. "Somehow I know exactly where to step. It's as if the path reveals itself to me before my feet touch it." Meanwhile, on the East Trail, Iris advanced with similar determination. The Black Guardian walked at her side, serving as a silent protector and guide. The young woman could feel her sister's presence growing stronger with each step, as if an invisible thread connected them and was gradually shortening the distance between them. The crystal fragment on her neck shone ever more intensely, emitting a slight hum that only Iris could hear. The surrounding trees seemed to respond to this energy, their leaves vibrating in tune with the silent melody of the crystal. At a certain moment, the black horse stopped abruptly, its ears raised in alert. Iris also stopped, perceiving the change. "In the environment." "What is it?" she whispered, caressing the animal's neck. A rustling of leaves to the right caught her attention. It wasn't the natural movement of the forest. There was something mechanical, artificial in that sound. The Black Guardian neighed softly, positioning itself between Iris and the source of the noise. Intruders, she understood, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Without hesitation, she diverted from the main trail, following an almost imperceptible path that only true knowers of the valley would be able to identify. The Black Guardian promptly followed her, its hooves barely touching the leaf-covered ground, moving with impressive, silent grace for an animal of its size. The detour led them to a small waterfall hidden among rock formations. There, Iris stopped to rest briefly, drinking from the crystalline water while the horse stood guard. "We're close," she murmured, feeling the crystal pulse more intensely. She must feel it too. Indeed, on the other trail, Lily stopped suddenly, raising her hand to the amulet that now emitted a comforting warmth. She diverted from the path, she announced, turning to her parents. "Something is following her, threatening." "Who? What are you talking about?" asked Peter, confused. "My sister," answered Lily with urgency in her voice. "We need to hurry. The clearing isn't far, and that's where we should meet." In the operations center of the concrete circle, the monitors showed the altered movement of one of the energy points. "We lost the direct signal of one of the targets," informed the technician, frustrated. She left the main trail. Victor hit the table with irritation. "Keep focus on the other target," he ordered. "If we can capture one of them, the other will inevitably come to us. Are the field teams ready?" "Yes, sir. Strategically positioned. Around the clearing." "Excellent," Victor smiled coldly. "Now it's just a matter of time. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue." The sun was beginning its descent to the west when Lily, Peter, and Diana spotted the first signs of the clearing ahead. The surrounding vegetation subtly changed. Ancient trees formed an almost perfect circle, their canopies inclined as if pointing to the center of a sacred space. Light filtered through the leaves created dancing patterns on the ground, covered with moss and small wildflowers. "This is it," whispered Lily, her entire body vibrating in resonance with the amulet. "This is the place from my dreams." Peter and Diana watched in amazement at the transformation in their daughter. Since they entered the valley, Lily seemed different, more connected, more confident, as if each step led her not only to a physical destination, but to a profound discovery of herself. "How do you know?" Diana asked softly. "I can see," replied Lily, her voice mixing astonishment and reverence. "Not like before, not like you see. It's as if the images formed directly in my mind without passing through my eyes. I see colors I didn't know existed, shapes that have no name in our language." As they advanced to the edge of the clearing, the amulet on Lily's neck began to shine with increasing intensity, emitting a slight hum that seemed to find an echo in the surrounding trees. The birds fell silent, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath, creating a moment of almost supernatural suspension. From the other side of the clearing, between two particularly ancient trees whose trunks intertwined to form a natural arch, a silhouette emerged. Iris walked slowly, guided by the Black Guardian, who accompanied her a few steps away. The crystal fragment on her neck shone with the same intensity as Lily's amulet, creating a spectacle of lights that reflected on the leaves and the humid air of the forest. The sisters stopped simultaneously when they were about 20 yards from each other. The recognition was instantaneous and profound, not just because of the identical face that each could now perceive in some mysterious way, but because of a connection that transcended physical appearance. "Lily," said Iris, the name escaping her lips as if she had always known it. "Iris," replied Lily, in the same tone of instinctive recognition. Peter and Diana observed the scene with contained emotion, realizing they were witnessing something greater than they could fully comprehend. The black horse neighed softly, as if approving the meeting. The sisters advanced simultaneously, like mirrors in motion, until they met at the exact center of the clearing. When their hands touched, a wave of invisible but perceptible energy radiated from the point of contact, making the surrounding flowers open completely and the birds resume their song in a surprising harmony. "Finally," whispered Iris, tears streaming down her face. It's like finding a part of me I never knew was missing. I've been looking for you in my dreams for as long as I can remember, replied Lily, equally moved. The moment of reconnection, however, was abruptly interrupted. A mechanical buzz began to approach, breaking the natural harmony of the clearing. The Black Guardian nervously agitated, positioning itself protectively near the sisters. We need to hurry, warned Iris, squeezing Lily's hands with urgency. They're coming. Who? Asked Peter, approaching the young women with a worried expression. The concrete circle, explained Iris, turning to him. Men who seek to control the power of the Guardian crystals for their own ends. They've been watching us, waiting for this moment. Diana joined the group, maternal instinct amplifying her perception of danger. What should we do? She asked, looking in all directions as if expecting to see enemies emerging from among the trees. Complete what we started, answered Iris with determination. She turned to Lily. You have the amulet, I have the crystal. Together they will show the way to the main crystal. Lily nodded, intuitively understanding what needed to be done. She removed the amulet from her neck, while Iris did the same with the crystal fragment. When they brought the two objects close, something extraordinary happened. The wooden amulet began to transform, its surface hardening and acquiring the characteristic brightness of the crystal. It's a disguised fragment, understood Lily, amazed. The two fragments attracted each other like magnets, joining perfectly into a single piece that emitted enough light to illuminate the entire clearing, even with the sun still present in the sky. On the ground beneath their feet, luminous patterns began to form, complex geometric designs that extended from the center to the edges of the clearing. Look, exclaimed Diana, pointing to one of the oldest trees. The trunk of the tree seemed to be slowly opening, revealing an internal cavity that also emitted the same bluish glow. Inside, partially, surrounded by the living roots of the tree, rested a larger crystal, clearly the core of the fragments that the sisters had united. The mechanical buzz became louder, and male voices could be heard approaching rapidly from various directions. The Black Guardian neighed more forcefully, stamping its hooves on the ground as if trying to hurry them. Now I understand, said Lily, her mind processing the images that the crystals transmitted directly to her brain. Our father separated us because he feared the power we carried. He works with them with the circle. Not by his own choice, completed Iris, receiving the same revelations. He's trapped in a web that he himself helped weave. The abandonment was his desperate way of protecting us. Peter, who was observing the edges of the clearing with growing apprehension, interrupted. We need to act quickly. We're being surrounded. Indeed, shadows moved between the trees, approaching cautiously. Sophisticated equipment shone under the setting sun, and orders were whispered through communicators. The sisters looked at each other, a silent decision being made between them. With determined steps, they advanced together toward the tree that guarded the main crystal. The Black Guardian positioned itself strategically between them and the approaching threats, while Peter and Diana remained close, willing to protect the young women at any cost. When the twins' hands simultaneously touched the main crystal, a flash of intense light filled the entire clearing, momentarily blinding all present, except Lily and Iris, who for the first time, in their lives, saw with perfect clarity. In his office in New York City, Oliver Bennett observed the monitors that transmitted live images of the operation in the valley. When the flash of light took over the screens, he closed his eyes, a single tear running down his face marked by years of regret. Forgive me, he whispered to the images of his daughters. I did what I believed was necessary. In the makeshift operations center at the edges of the valley, Victor Foster frantically shouted orders, trying to reorganize the teams after the explosion of light. Advance immediately. Capture the girls and the crystals, he ordered, his normally composed face now distorted by frustration and urgency. In the clearing, when the light diminished its intensity, a surprising transformation had occurred. The main crystal, now completely visible, pulsed like a living heart. The roots of the tree that housed it had extended, creating an intricate network that covered the entire ground of the clearing. More impressive still, other roots emerged, from the ground at distant points, as if an underground communication had been established. "The network is awakening," explained Iris, her voice laden with reverence. "The Guardian crystals scattered throughout the United States are responding, reactivating ancient paths of protection." Lily, who could now see the physical world clearly for the first time in her life, observed in wonder how lines of energy connected the crystals, forming a pattern that resembled a constellation over the map of the country. "It's like an immune system of the Earth itself," she understood. "The crystals are anchoring points for energies that maintain the natural balance." The men from the concrete circle finally reached the edges of the clearing, but stopped abruptly, unable to advance. An invisible but tangible barrier prevented their entry into the sacred space. Victor Foster, who was personally leading the operation at that moment, furiously struck the barrier with a special baton developed to neutralize energy fields. His attempts, however, were completely ineffective. "This isn't over," he shouted to the sisters, his face contorted in a mask of hatred and frustration. "You can't protect all points at the same time." As if in direct response to his threat, the main crystal emitted a new pulse of energy, and the Black Guardian rose on its hind legs, neighed powerfully, and struck the ground with its front hooves with incredible force. The impact generated an expansive wave that pushed all the invaders backward, knocking them down and damaging their equipment. Peter and Diana observed everything with a mixture of astonishment and pride. Their adoptive daughter, along with her newly found sister, was at the center of something much greater than they could have imagined. They didn't completely understand what was happening, but they intuitively felt the importance and justice of that moment. "What happens now?" asked Diana, approaching the young women who remained connected to the main crystal. Lily and Iris looked at each other, smiling with a complicity that seemed to transcend the 15 years of separation. "Now," answered Lily, her voice mixing. "Joy and determination, our true journey begins." 3 days had passed since the meeting in the clearing. Spring Valley pulsed with renewed energy as if each leaf, each insect, each drop of water was more alive, more conscious. At the Living Earth Sanctuary, an extraordinary meeting was taking place. The Guardian Elders, representatives of traditional communities from various regions of the United States, had gathered in response to the call of the crystals. Lily and Iris were seated side by side at the center of the circle formed by the Guardians. Their identical faces, now illuminated by a radiant serenity, revealed the profound transformation that both had experienced. The physical blindness that had accompanied them since birth had transformed into a dual vision. They could see both the material world and energetic dimensions normally invisible to others. "What happened in the clearing was just the beginning," explained Mother Dorothy, her voice resonating through the circular hall of the sanctuary. "The reconnection of the sisters and the union of the fragments activated the main Guardian crystal, but there are 6 other crystals scattered across strategic points of our territory." A living map of the United States was projected in the center of the circle, not through technology, but through an ancient natural magic that used light, water, and crystals to create 3-dimensional images. 7 luminous points pulsed in different regions. "Spring Valley, where we are now, is the heart of the system," continued the Elder, pointing to the central point that shone more intensely. "The others are located in the Amazon, in the wetlands, in the Crystal Range, in the sea mountains, in the grasslands, and in the plains." Peter and Diana, who had been invited to participate in the meeting, observed everything with a mixture of fascination and concern. In the last few days, they had witnessed events that defied their understanding of the world, but the love for their adoptive daughter and respect for the ancestral knowledge they found in the valley kept them open to this new reality. The concrete. "Circle has not given up," intervened Zack, who had returned from a reconnaissance mission at the edges of the valley. "They retreated temporarily, but they are regrouping forces. Our allies report movements in all 7 regions of the Guardian." "Crystals!" A concerned murmur ran through the circle. Jasmine, the young Guardian who had warned about the presence of the invaders, stood up to speak. "I managed to intercept some of their communications. They are planning simultaneous operations, aiming to capture the crystals before they can be completely activated by the network." Lily, who until then had been listening attentively, stood up. Her posture exhibited a confidence that surprised even her adoptive parents. "We need to divide," she declared with a firm voice. "Iris and I must visit each of the points to personally activate the crystals. Our connection with them is the key to completely awakening the protection network." Iris nodded, standing up to be beside her sister. "The power of the crystals is not to be controlled or exploited, as the concrete circle intends," she explained. "It's a living system of balance, developed millennia ago by the original peoples, to maintain harmony among all forms of life." Mother Dorothy observed the sisters with eyes that mixed pride and concern. "The journey you propose is dangerous," she warned. "The concrete circle has resources, technology, and influence. They will not hesitate to use all available means to stop you." "And what about Oliver Bennett?" asked Diana, speaking for the first time in the meeting. "He is the biological father of the girls and, from what we understand, is involved with this group that threatens them." A heavy silence fell over the sanctuary. It was Madeline who finally answered, her voice carrying the weight of painful knowledge. "Oliver is not who he seems to be. His story with the crystals and with the girls is more complex than we can imagine." At this moment, as if summoned by the mention of his name, a figure appeared at the entrance of the sanctuary. Tall, of elegant bearing despite his advanced age, Oliver Bennett walked alone, unarmed, with his hands raised in a sign of peace. His face, marked by time and remorse, exhibited an expression of deep emotion at seeing his daughters together for the first time in 15 years. The Black Guardian, who was resting near the entrance, rose immediately, but not in an attack. Posture. The magnificent animal observed Oliver with what seemed to be recognition. "He allowed his entry," murmured Mother Dorothy, surprised. "The Guardian recognizes his true essence." The sisters stared at their biological father with a mixture of contradictory emotions: curiosity, resentment, confusion, and, surprisingly, an instinctive compassion that neither had expected to feel. "My daughters," Oliver's voice failed, with emotion. "I come alone, without weapons, without technology, without representing any interest beyond my own regret and desire for reparation." Mother Dorothy made a gesture, and the Guardians opened space in the circle, allowing Oliver to approach. He walked slowly, each step seeming to carry the weight of 15 years of absence. "What do you want?" asked Lily, her voice firm but not hostile. "To offer what I know," he answered simply, "and perhaps, if you allow me, to help protect what I almost destroyed." In an unexpected gesture, Oliver knelt before his daughters, head bowed in a sign of humility. "The Concrete Circle recruited me 20 years ago, when I was just a young engineer with innovative ideas about sustainable energy," he began. "They presented themselves as an organization dedicated to progress and harmony between development and nature. Only years later did I discover their true intentions." He raised his face, revealing teary eyes. "When they discovered that my wife was pregnant with twins during the root moon, they realized the unique opportunity this represented. There is an ancient prophecy." "We know the prophecy," interrupted Iris gently. "Children born blind during the root moon, destined to reactivate the network of guardian crystals." Oliver nodded, a shadow of pain crossing his face. "They monitored the entire pregnancy, performed subtle experiments that your mother didn't even notice." His voice failed again. "When they learned that you had been born with the mark of the prophecy, physical blindness compensated by extraordinary inner vision, the plan changed. They no longer wanted to just study you, they wanted to control you, use you as instruments to access the power of the crystals." Peter approached, positioning himself protectively next to Lily. "And that's when you decided to abandon them on a deserted road?" he questioned, barely managing to contain his indignation. "No," answered Oliver, looking directly at Peter. "That's when I decided to save them in the only way I could imagine." Mother Dorothy intervened, her tone softening. "The growing tension. The abandonment was planned together with the ancient guardians. The Black Guardian did not appear by chance that night." All eyes turned to the imposing horse that now approached the circle, as if understanding they were talking about it. "The separation of the sisters and of the crystal fragments was necessary to protect them until the right moment," completed the elder. "Oliver worked in the shadows all these years, diverting the circle's attention, providing false information, buying time so that you could grow and prepare. The sisters exchanged glances, processing this new perspective on their story. But now they know, continued Oliver, standing up. Victor Foster, the current operational leader of the Circle, discovered my betrayal. The teams he sent to the valley weren't just after you and the crystals. They were also under orders to eliminate me. That's why you came personally, understood. Lily. Yes, confirmed Oliver. And because I have crucial information about their plans. In 3 days, the Circle will launch simultaneous operations to capture all the Guardian crystals. They're using advanced technology to neutralize the natural energy fields that protect the sacred sites. An alarmed murmur ran through the sanctuary. Mother Dorothy raised her hands, restoring silence. Then our decision is made, she declared. The daughters of the Root Moon must depart immediately to activate the crystal network before it's too late. Iris stepped forward, looking directly at her father. Will you come with us? She asked, extending her hand in a gesture of acceptance that surprised everyone, including herself. Oliver looked at his daughter's extended hand with barely contained emotion. If you accept me, I will dedicate the rest of my life to protecting what I almost destroyed, he answered, his voice laden with determination. Lily approached, placing her hand over Iris's and Oliver's, completing a family circle that for 15 years had remained broken. At that moment, the Guardian crystal that they had brought from the clearing to the sanctuary emitted a pulse of intense light, as if approving the reconciliation. On the walls of the sanctuary, ancient inscriptions began to glow, revealing long-forgotten maps and instructions. The path is revealing itself, announced Mother Dorothy, observing the luminous symbols. The journey of the 7 crystals has begun. Dawn was tinting the sky with shades of pink and orange when the expedition departed from Spring Valley. 7 groups were formed, each destined for one of the points where the Guardian crystals rested. Lily and Iris, however, would not separate. Their twin connection was fundamental to fully activate each crystal. The plan was ambitious and risky. Visit the 7 locations in just 3 days before the Concrete Circle could launch its coordinated operation. For this, they would count on the ancestral knowledge of the Guardians and, surprisingly, on the technology and influence that Oliver still maintained. My private jet awaits us at the regional airport, explained Oliver, as the main group followed the trail leading to the exit of the valley. We can use official routes for the most accessible points and alternative methods for the more remote locations. Peter and Diana had decided to accompany Lily, unable to let her face such danger without their support. They walked side by side with Madeline and Zach, Iris's adoptive parents, forming an expanded family united by extraordinary circumstances. How did you know you should adopt Iris? Diana asked Madeline as they walked together. The woman smiled, her eyes shining with precious memories. It wasn't a decision, it was a recognition, she answered. When the Black Guardian brought that small child to our door, we immediately knew she was part of something greater than ourselves. The ancient stories spoke of this moment, and we simply accepted our role. Diana nodded, understanding more, deeply her own connection with Lily. Perhaps there was no coincidence in the fact that they had found that baby on the road so many years ago. The Black Guardian accompanied the group, but in a different way now. Sometimes it materialized as the imposing horse that everyone knew. Other times it seemed to dissolve into shadows that moved independently, as if it could exist in multiple places simultaneously. It's communicating with the other spiritual. Guardians, explained Iris, noticing Lily's curious look. Each crystal region has its own protector. In the Amazon, it's the crystal serpent. In the wetlands, the water deer. In the crystal range, the fire falcon. And they're all awakening now that we've reactivated the first crystal, completed Lily, understanding the dimension of the transformation in progress. The first destination would be the Sea Mountains, due to their relative proximity. As planned, Oliver's jet awaited them, ready to take off as soon as they boarded. On board, detailed maps and special equipment were distributed. This communicator is based on crystal technology, explained Jasmine, handing small pendants to each member. of the expedition. It will allow us to communicate regardless of distance or conventional technological blockages. As they flew over the forest, Oliver explained the details of the Concrete Circle's plan that he had discovered before his escape. "They've developed energy neutralization devices," he said, showing schematics on his tablet. "They're capable of temporarily interrupting the natural protection fields that surround the crystals. They plan to install them simultaneously at all 7 points." "And what is their ultimate goal?" asked Peter, who was still trying to fully assimilate the magnitude of the situation. "Power," answered Oliver simply. "The Guardian crystals aren't just energy reservoirs, they're connection nodes with the planet's own consciousness. Whoever controls them will be able to influence natural phenomena, alter climate patterns, even affect soil fertility in large regions. Imagine the political and economic power that would represent," added Mother Dorothy, who accompanied the main group. "Entire nations could be subjugated by the threat of droughts, floods, or lost harvests." Lily and Iris looked at each other, feeling the weight of the responsibility they carried. It wasn't just about protecting the crystals, it was about preserving the natural balance of the world. The jet began its descent toward a small airport near the Sea Mountains. From there they would continue by helicopter to a remote point in the forest where the second Guardian crystal awaited. "Victor Foster certainly already knows of our movement," warned Oliver, checking encrypted messages on his cell phone. "We need to be quick and discreet." In the Concrete Circle's operations center, now transferred to a skyscraper in New York City, Victor observed monitors that displayed aerial movement in the region. Oliver's jet landed near the Sea Mountains. Informed a technician. Victor smiled coldly. "Exactly as predicted," he replied, turning in his chair to face the special operations team that awaited instructions. "Activate Operation Blockade in the mountains. I want that crystal and the twins." Back to the expedition, the helicopter was flying over a dense region of the forest. Below, a green ocean extended as far as the eye could see, occasionally interrupted by imposing rock formations. There. Iris suddenly pointed, her eyes capturing something that the others couldn't see. "That half-moon-shaped formation, that's where the crystal is kept." The pilot, an old ally of Oliver who had been carefully selected for the mission, nodded and began the approach. There was no visible clearing for landing, only the continuous canopy of the forest. "We'll have to descend by ropes," he explained, keeping the helicopter in a stationary position over the point indicated by Iris. Equipped with special harnesses, the group descended one by one until they reached the forest floor. The air was humid and perfumed, laden with life. As soon as the last member touched the ground, the helicopter moved away, heading to a safe waiting point. "This way," indicated Lily, her entire body responding to a silent call that only she and Iris could perceive. They advanced through the dense forest, guided by the sisters who seemed to intuitively know each curve of the path. After about 30 minutes of walking, they reached a rock formation that rose abruptly from the forest floor. Seen up close, it really resembled a half-moon. "The entrance is hidden," murmured Iris, passing her hands over the surface of the rock. Lily joined her, and together their hands found small, almost imperceptible recesses. When they simultaneously pressed these points, a soft sound of stone sliding over stone filled the air. An opening appeared at the base of the formation, revealing a tunnel that descended into the depths of the earth. "Amazing," murmured Peter, marveling at the ingenuity of the ancient construction. The group entered the tunnel, which surprisingly was not dark. Smaller crystals embedded in the walls emitted a soft light, increasing in intensity as they advanced. The air, instead of becoming stuffy as would be expected in an underground space, seemed purer and more energizing. After a gradual descent, the tunnel opened into a spacious cave. In the center, emerging from the soil itself as if it were a living part of the rock, was the second Guardian crystal. Larger than the one in Spring Valley, this one had a greenish tone that pulsed like a heart. "It's beautiful," whispered Diana, feeling an inexplicable emotion as she contemplated the crystal. The sisters advanced in perfect synchrony, as if executing a dance rehearsed for millennia. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the crystal and simultaneously extended their hands to touch it. At the moment of contact, the light of the crystal intensified dramatically. Waves of green energy radiated through the space, creating hypnotic patterns on the walls of the cave. Lily and Iris closed their eyes, absorbing the knowledge that the crystal transmitted directly to their minds. "This is the crystal of regeneration," announced Lily, her voice taking on an almost ethereal quality, responsible for the renewal cycles of flora. "It's fully awakening now," completed Iris, connecting with the main crystal in the valley. The moment of communion was abruptly interrupted by the sound of distant explosions, reverberating through the rock. "They've arrived," warned Oliver, quickly consulting a device on his wrist. "They're using explosives to force entry through another point of the rock formation." "How much time do we have?" asked Zack, instinctively positioning himself to protect the group. "Minutes, at most," answered Oliver, his face tense with concern. Mother Dorothy approached the crystal, her ancient eyes assessing the situation with wisdom accumulated over decades. "The crystal is already awake and connected," she declared. "We no longer need to be physically here to maintain the active connection." As confirmation of her words, a melodious sound emanated from the crystal, and its light pulsed in a rhythm that resembled a code. On the walls of the cave, symbols began to glow, similar to those that had appeared in the sanctuary. "It's a map," understood Iris, attentively observing the symbols. "It's showing us an alternative exit route." "And something more," added Lily, pointing to a specific pattern. "A message about the next crystal. Its protection is weakening more rapidly than the others. We need to reach the wetlands as soon as possible." A louder crash indicated that the invaders were advancing rapidly. With no time to lose, the group followed the route indicated by the symbols, a narrow tunnel that extended horizontally through the mountain. Emerging on a slope opposite to where they had entered, they found a surprise waiting. The Black Guardian materialized in its equine form, accompanied by 3 other horses with light-colored coats. He provided transportation, understood Madeline, approaching the animals that remained remarkably calm, despite the sounds of pursuit echoing through the forest. Mounting quickly, they divided into pairs on the 4 horses. The Black Guardian, carrying Lily and Iris, took the lead, guiding the group through invisible trails that wound through the dense forest. Behind them, men in tactical uniforms emerged from the mountain, communicators in hand, reporting the situation. Of the Yao. "Targets escaped, sir," one of them reported, "but we installed the neutralization device near the crystal as planned." On the other end of the communication, Victor Foster received the news with contained irritation. "Is the device working?" he asked dryly. "Yes, sir. Readings indicate that it's operational, but it doesn't seem to be having the expected effect on the crystal. The energy continues to flow." Victor punched the table in frustration. "They've already fully activated it," he concluded. "Reposition the teams. The next target will probably be the wetlands or the crystal range. I want all units on maximum alert." Meanwhile, the group reached the meeting point with the helicopter. Upon arriving at the small clearing, the horses stopped. The Black Guardian neighed softly, as if saying goodbye. "He will materialize at the next point," explained Iris, caressing the neck of the magnificent animal before dismounting. "He's gathering the other spiritual guardians." Oliver, consulting his device again, showed a digital map to the group. "We have to change strategy," he declared. "They anticipated our route. We need to divide forces to confuse them." "How will we do that?" asked Peter, concern evident on his face. "We'll send the jet to the crystal range as a decoy," explained Oliver. "Meanwhile, we'll use an alternative route to the wetlands." Lily and Iris exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "We need to separate," Lily finally announced, surprising everyone. "What?" Diana approached, alarmed. "I thought you needed to be together to activate the crystals." "For the first awakening, yes," explained Iris. "But now that the network has begun to form, we can work at different points simultaneously, accelerating the process." "It's risky," pondered Mother Dorothy. "You'll be more vulnerable separated." "More vulnerable but more efficient," replied Lily with determination. Time is against us. We need to activate all the crystals before the Circle manages to completely neutralize any of them. After brief deliberation, the plan was established. Lily, accompanied by her adoptive parents and Oliver, would head to the wetlands. Iris, with Madeline, Zack, and Mother Dorothy, would head to the Crystal Range. The other Guardians would divide between the other points, preparing the ground for the sisters' arrival. When the helicopter took off again, taking them back to the airport where they would separate, the sky presented an unusual spectacle. Clouds formed in perfect circular patterns, and flocks of birds flew in formations that resembled the symbols seen in the Crystal Cave. Nature is responding, observed Mother Dorothy, looking through the helicopter window. The Guardian crystals. Network is awakening all the natural consciousness of the country. In the depths of the sea mountains, the greenish crystal continued to pulse, indifferent to the neutralization device installed by the concrete circle. Roots began to grow around the invasive device, slowly enveloping it, as if the forest itself was defending itself. The race against time had begun. 5 crystals still awaited the touch of the daughters of the Root Moon to fully awaken, while the concrete circle mobilized all its resources to prevent this from happening. The future of the natural balance of the United States, and perhaps the world, depended on the outcome of this journey. The last 2 days had been a frantic race against time. In an almost supernatural coordination, Lily and Iris managed to reach all the points of the Guardian crystals, always one step ahead of the concrete circle forces. The wetlands revealed the crystal of fluidity, responsible for the water cycles. In the Crystal Range, the crystal of transmutation, guardian of mineral transformation processes, awakened under Iris's touch. In the Amazon, the crystal of diversity pulsed with renewed vigor when Lily connected to it, strengthening the webs of biodiversity. In the grasslands, the crystal of resistance, protector of renewal cycles after natural fires, responded to Iris's call. In the plains, the last of the 7, the crystal of expansion, responsible for winds and seed dispersion, completed its awakening under the synchronized touch of the sisters, reunited again for the final moment. Now, everyone was returning to Spring Valley for the complete integration ceremony of the network. The Living Earth Sanctuary was buzzing with activity as Guardians from across the country arrived to witness the historic event. The news they brought was encouraging. At each crystal location, the neutralization devices installed by the concrete circle had been gradually deactivated by natural forces themselves. Roots enveloped the machines, insects infiltrated circuits, unexpected storms damaged equipment. Nature is defending itself, explained Jasmine during the preparatory meeting. Sazida, the crystals are already communicating with each other, even before the final ceremony. Lily and Iris, seated side by side at the center of the sanctuary, displayed a serene tranquility despite the fatigue of the journey. The connection between them had deepened exponentially during the days of separation. Even physically distant, they maintained a constant mental bond, sharing perceptions and information instantaneously. "We need to discuss Victor Foster," interrupted Oliver, bringing the group back to practical concerns. "My sources indicate that he is gathering all available resources for a final offensive. He plans to invade the valley during the ceremony." A concerned murmur ran through the sanctuary. Peter, who in the last few days had revealed himself to be a surprisingly skilled strategist, stood up to speak. "The natural defenses of the valley have been reinforced by the awakening of the crystals. The access trails are spontaneously closing, making conventional approach almost impossible." "Almost impossible doesn't mean impossible," pondered Zack, crossing his arms thoughtfully. "Victor didn't get where he is without having extraordinary resources at his disposal." Mother Dorothy rose with the dignity of one who carried centuries of wisdom. "The ceremony cannot be postponed," she declared firmly. "The celestial alignment will occur tonight, when the crescent moon reaches its apex. It's the perfect moment for the complete integration of the network, exactly 15 years after the birth of the twins. Then we need to be prepared to defend the valley," concluded Madeline, her determined expression contrasting with her usual serenity. Diana, who had been silent during most of the meeting, approached the twins. "Are you ready for this?" She asked gently, maternal concern evident in her voice. Lily smiled, taking the hands of her adoptive mother between hers. "We're more than ready, Mom," she answered with quiet confidence. "In fact, the ceremony has already begun, in a way. Since the last crystal awakened, the network has been continuously strengthening." "What will happen exactly during this ceremony?" questioned Peter, verbalizing the curiosity that many shared. Iris stood up, walking to the center of the sanctuary, where a living map of the United States showed the 7 points of the Guardian, crystals, all now pulsing with intense light. "The ceremony will complete the energy web that connects all the crystals," she explained, her graceful movements drawing patterns over the map. "When complete, the network will function as an immune system for the American territory, maintaining natural balance even in the face of external interference." "And what will be your role after the ceremony?" asked Oliver, a shadow of concern crossing his face. "Will you need to sacrifice yourselves in some way?" The question brought a tense silence to the sanctuary. It was a fear that many secretly harbored, that the destiny of the Daughters of the Root Moon included some kind of final sacrifice. Lily and Iris exchanged glances and smiled simultaneously. "No, Father," answered Lily with gentleness. "It's not about sacrifice, but transformation. We will become permanent guardians of the network, yes, but we'll continue to live our lives. With some changes, of course," added Iris. "Our perception of the world will never be the same, and we'll have responsibilities that most people couldn't understand." Oliver closed his eyes for a moment, visibly relieved. In the few days since his reunion with his daughters, he had experienced a reconnection that he never believed would be possible. The prospect of losing them again was unbearable. The meeting continued with detailed planning of the ceremony and defensive strategies. While the adults discussed, the twins silently left the sanctuary, feeling the need for a moment of privacy before the night's events. They walked side by side to the small waterfall where Iris had hidden during the initial pursuit. The place was even more vibrant now. Flowers that normally wouldn't bloom at that time of year displayed intense colors, rare butterflies danced in complex patterns, and the water itself seemed to sing a gentle melody as it touched the stones. "It's strange to think that less than a week ago I didn't know you existed," commented Lily, sitting on a smooth stone at the water's edge. Iris smiled, choosing a space beside her sister. "I always knew there was someone," she replied, dipping her fingers in the crystalline water. "I didn't know who, didn't fully understand, but I felt your presence like a luminous shadow at the limits of my consciousness." "How will our life be after today?" asked Lily, verbalizing the question that both had been considering. "Different," answered Iris simply, "but I believe good. We'll have responsibilities, yes, but also possibilities that few people could imagine." They remained in contemplative silence for a few minutes, each absorbing the presence of the other and the transcendental beauty of the place. It was Lily who finally spoke. "He's coming, isn't he? Victor Foster." "Yes," confirmed Iris, her gaze becoming distant for a moment, as if observing something beyond the normal reach of the senses. "He's personally leading the operation. He's using experimental equipment, things that not even our father knew about. Will we be able to stop him?" "We won't need to," answered Iris with an enigmatic smile. "The valley will take care of that." As the sun began its descent on the horizon, they returned to the sanctuary. The energy of the place had subtly changed. Smaller crystals embedded in the walls now emitted a more intense glow, and the ancient symbols seemed to almost float above the surfaces where they were engraved. The preparations for the ceremony were almost complete. In the center of the sanctuary, the main crystal of Spring Valley had been positioned on an altar of raw stone. Around it, 7 guardians representing each region formed a circle, while the other participants organized themselves in wider, concentric circles. Oliver approached his daughters, his face exhibiting a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Victor's teams have been detected at the outer edges of the valley," he informed in a low voice. "They're using advanced infiltration equipment, trying to circumvent the natural defenses." "They will arrive too late," affirmed Lily with quiet certainty. "How can you have such confidence?" asked Oliver, genuinely intrigued by his daughter's calm in the face of imminent threat. "Because we aren't alone in this fight," answered Iris, pointing outside the sanctuary. Following the indicated direction, Oliver saw something that left him momentarily speechless. At the limits of the valley, various animals were gathering in unusual formations. Birds of prey circled in precise patterns. Mammals of different species positioned themselves strategically. Even insects seemed to organize themselves in coordinated swarms. "The animal guardians," murmured Oliver, finally understanding the dimension of the transformation in progress. Mother Dorothy approached, announcing that it was time to begin the ceremony. The sun had set, and the crescent moon was beginning its ascent in the night sky, bathing the valley with a silvery light that seemed more intense than normal. Lily and Iris positioned themselves on opposite sides of the main crystal, while the other participants took their designated places. Peter, Diana, Madeline, and Zach remained close, forming a protective family circle around the twins. The ceremony began with an ancestral chant intoned by Mother Dorothy, words in an almost forgotten language, older than the country itself, transmitted through generations of guardians. Gradually, other voices joined, creating a complex harmony that seemed to make the very air vibrate. As the chant intensified, the main crystal began to pulse with increasingly bright light. Lines of energy became visible, extending from spring valley to the 7 directions of the guardian crystals. On the living map projected on one of the walls of the sanctuary, the energy network could be seen taking shape, not just connecting the 7 main points, but extending in increasingly fine branches, gradually covering the entire American territory. At the edges of the valley, Victor Foster was personally leading an elite team equipped with the most advanced available technology. Wearing tactical gear and carrying energy neutralization devices, they cautiously advanced along the increasingly closed trail. "The sensors are detecting unprecedented energy peaks," informed one of the technicians, consulting a portable device. "The ceremony must be underway." "Advance faster," ordered Victor, frustration evident in his voice. "We cannot allow them to complete the integration of the network." At the exact moment he pronounced these words, the path ahead transformed drastically. Plants grew at supernatural speed, intertwining to form impenetrable barriers. The ground beneath their feet became unstable, not in a threatening way, but enough to prevent any progress. "What the hell is happening?" exclaimed Victor, instinctively retreating. In response, an imposing figure materialized before the group, the Black Guardian, more majestic than ever, its eyes reflecting the moonlight. Like silver mirrors, it wasn't alone. At its side, other translucent forms took shape. The water deer of the wetlands, the crystal serpent of the Amazon, the fire falcon of the Crystal Range, and other spiritual guardians representing each crystal region. The vision was so impressive, so outside the parameters of reality that Victor understood, that he simply froze, unable to react. His men, equally astonished, slowly lowered their weapons. In the sanctuary, oblivious to the confrontation at the edges of the valley, Lily and Iris had entered a state of deep trance. Their physical bodies remained beside the main crystal, but their consciousnesses traveled through the forming energy network, witnessing the transformation of the country from a perspective impossible for ordinary minds. They saw forests breathing in synchrony, rivers pulsing like veins in a living organism, mountains reverberating with harmonic frequencies that stabilized regional climate patterns. They felt the Earth awakening to a deeper consciousness of itself, not as a single entity, but as a community of interconnected beings, from microorganisms in the soil to the largest predators. When the moon reached its zenith exactly above the sanctuary, a beam of moonlight seemed to concentrate directly on the main crystal. At this precise moment, Lily and Iris simultaneously opened their eyes and, in a synchronized gesture, touched the crystal with both hands. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A wave of pure energy radiated from the crystal, expanding in concentric circles that surpassed the walls of the sanctuary, enveloped the entire valley and continued to expand. It wasn't a destructive wave, but transformative. Wherever it passed, plants bloomed out of season, animals felt revitalized, and even the humans present experienced a sensation of profound well-being and connection with everything around them. On the living map, the Guardian Crystals network finally completed itself, covering the entire United States with an intricate pattern that resembled both constellations and the roots of ancient trees. Each intersection point shone with a unique frequency, contributing to the harmony of the whole. At the edges of the valley, Victor Foster and his men helplessly witnessed the passage of the energy wave. When it reached them, something unexpected happened. Instead of being repelled or injured, they felt enveloped by a sensation of belonging so profound that many fell to their knees, tears involuntarily streaming down their faces. Victor himself, who had dedicated decades to the pursuit of control over the crystals, felt his perception of the world radically transform. In a moment of transcendental clarity, he understood the fundamental error in his approach. The crystals were never meant to be controlled, but to be partners in a cosmic dance of balance and regeneration. "Lower your weapons," he ordered, with a trembling voice, dropping his own equipment. "It's over." In the sanctuary, the ceremony was reaching its apex. Lily and Iris, still connected to the main crystal, seemed to radiate their own light. Their identical faces exhibited expressions of absolute serenity, as if they had finally found their true purpose. Gradually, the intensity of the light began to diminish. The sisters moved away from the crystal, which continued to pulse softly, now in a stable rhythm that resembled a tranquil breathing. The ancestral chant came to a harmonious end, and a reverent silence filled the sanctuary. It was Lily who spoke first, her calm voice carrying a natural authority that she didn't possess. "Before it is done, the Guardian Crystals network is complete and stable. What happens now?" asked Diana, timidly approaching to embrace her daughter. "Now," answered Iris, equally accepting Madeline's embrace, "we live in a new balance. The network won't eliminate challenges or conflicts, but it has established natural limits that will prevent catastrophic imbalances." Oliver, who observed his daughters with a mixture of pride and admiration, noticed something surprising. "Your eyes," he murmured, approaching to see better. The twins' eyes, previously clouded by congenital blindness, now exhibited crystalline irises with iridescent reflections that resembled the light of the Guardian Crystals themselves. "We can see now," confirmed Lily, smiling at her biological father. "Not just the physical world, but the energies that sustain it." "It's a gift and a responsibility," added Iris. "We'll be the main guardians of the network as long as we live." Mother Dorothy approached, her ancient face exhibiting a deep peace. "And when the time comes, other guardians will emerge," she said with serene wisdom. "The cycle will continue as it always has been." The following morning, as the sun rose over a transformed spring valley, the group gathered for a simple breakfast outdoors. News was arriving from all parts of the country. Inexplicable but beneficial phenomena were being reported in various regions. Degraded areas showed surprising signs of regeneration. Species believed to be locally extinct were reappearing, and even the climate seemed to find a more harmonious balance. "What will you do now?" asked Peter to the twins as they savored fresh fruits harvested from the nearby orchard. Lily and Iris exchanged a complicit look before answering. "We still have much to learn," answered Lily. "And much to teach as well. We need to establish a new Council of Guardians," complimented Iris, "people who will understand the importance of the network and help protect it." "And what about Victor and the Concrete Circle?" questioned Zach, still concerned about possible future threats. Oliver, who had received news through his contacts, answered, "Victor dissolved the Circle this morning. Many of its members are, surprisingly, looking for ways to repair the damage they caused." "The energy wave didn't just complete the crystals network," explained Mother Dorothy. "It also awakened in many hearts the understanding of our fundamental connection with the Earth." As they talked, the Black Guardian silently approached the group. It wasn't alone. Accompanying it, a flock of blue butterflies danced in the morning air, creating patterns that seemed to convey a message. Lily and Iris rose simultaneously, as if they had received a silent call. They briefly said goodbye to the group and followed the black horse, which guided them to a more secluded part of the valley. There, in a small clearing surrounded by flowering trees, they found a surprise. 2 foals, one white as snow and the other black as night, grazing peacefully side by side. "Our companions," understood Iris, approaching the black colt, which raised its head in recognition. "The next generation of guardians," completed Lily, extending her hand to the white colt, which gently touched it with its muzzle. The black guardian observed the scene with what seemed to be approval in its ancient eyes. Its 15-year mission was complete. The daughters of the Root Moon had found their way and restored the balance that had been threatened for so long. As the sun rose in the sky, bathing Spring Valley with golden light, the twins shared a moment of silent understanding. The path ahead would be challenging, but now they walked together, guided by the wisdom of the crystals and supported by an expanded family that transcended blood ties. The separation that had marked the beginning of their lives had finally given way to a union that would benefit not only them, but an entire country, whose nature now breathed in renewed harmony. The cycle was complete, and a new chapter was beginning. Not just for Lily and Iris, but for the earth itself that now awakened, watched its daughters with maternal love. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching.